The relationship between the United States and Israel is often explained in simple terms. Many people believe it exists because of shared democratic values, cultural ties, or historical sympathy after World War II. But if you look closely at the long arc of geopolitical history, a deeper and more strategic explanation begins to emerge. Every year, the United States provides Israel with billions of dollars in military and economic support, while also offering diplomatic protection on the global stage. This pattern has remained consistent across decades, regardless of which political party controls the White House or Congress. That consistency raises an interesting mystery. Why does this alliance remain so strong, even when global circumstances change? The answer is not as simple as most people think, and understanding it requires going back to the origins of Israel itself and examining how global power systems evolved during the 20th century. When Israel was established in 1948, the United States quickly recognized the new state, but the relationship between the two countries was not immediately as close as it is today. In the early years, American policymakers were cautious. The Middle East was already becoming one of the most important regions in the world because of its massive oil reserves. And many of those resources were controlled by Arab countries. Washington feared that openly favoring Israel might damage its relationships with oil-producing states whose cooperation was essential for the global economy. For much of the 1950s, American strategy in the region was focused on balancing relationships rather than choosing sides. However, the geopolitical environment was rapidly changing. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union was expanding across the globe, and the Middle East suddenly became a major battleground for influence between the two superpowers. During this period, several Arab governments began building close relationships with the Soviet Union. Countries like Egypt, Syria, and Iraq received military equipment and political backing from Moscow. For American strategists, this development created a new concern. If the Soviet Union gained too much influence in the Middle East, it could potentially control strategic shipping routes, disrupt oil supplies, and expand its military presence into one of the most important regions on Earth. As tensions grew, American leaders began to view Israel differently. Instead of seeing it only as a newly formed state in a complicated region, they started to recognize it as a potential long-term strategic partner that shared Western political alignment and could counterbalance Soviet-backed governments. The turning point came in 1967 during the Six-Day War, in a conflict that lasted less than a week. Israel defeated the combined forces of several neighboring Arab countries and captured large territories. The speed and efficiency of Israel's military performance surprised observers around the world. For American defense planners, the war demonstrated something extremely important. Israel had become one of the most capable military forces in the region. This realization changed how Washington viewed the alliance. Israel was no longer simply a country that needed protection. It had become a powerful strategic asset that could influence the balance of power in the Middle East. Over time, cooperation between the two countries expanded rapidly. Israel provided intelligence about Soviet weapon systems used by neighboring armies, and captured equipment was studied by American analysts. Military research and technology sharing increased, creating deeper connections between defense institutions on both sides. The relationship grew even stronger during the Cold War years. Israel's intelligence services developed an extensive network across the region, and information gathered through these channels often helped American agencies understand military developments in nearby countries. At the same time, joint research projects led to the development of advanced military technologies, including missile defense systems and surveillance tools. These collaborations gradually created an interconnected system of defense cooperation. The alliance was no longer just about diplomacy between governments. It involved scientists, military planners, intelligence officers, and technology companies working together across multiple layers of national security infrastructure. However, the relationship faced a serious test during the oil crisis of 1973. When war broke out again between Israel and several Arab states, the United States quickly provided military support to Israel. In response, oil-producing countries imposed an embargo on the United States and several Western allies. The global economy was thrown into turmoil. Fuel shortages spread across many countries, and energy prices rose dramatically. For a moment, it seemed possible that American support for Israel might come at an unbearable economic cost. Yet something unexpected happened. Despite the crisis, the United States did not retreat from the alliance. Instead, the partnership continued to deepen in the years that followed. The reason was rooted in long-term strategic thinking. American policymakers had already calculated that maintaining influence in the Middle East was critical for global stability and economic security. While the oil embargo created immediate problems, losing strategic leverage in the region could have created even greater risks over time. Israel had demonstrated that it was militarily capable, politically stable, and aligned with Western interests. In a region where governments frequently changed and alliances could shift quickly, that kind of reliability was extremely valuable. Over the next several decades, the alliance became more institutionalized. Military aid programs expanded, intelligence sharing increased, and cooperative defense projects multiplied. Agreements between the two countries created permanent frameworks for collaboration in areas ranging from missile defense to cybersecurity. By the late 20th century, the partnership had evolved into something deeper than a traditional diplomatic relationship. It had become embedded within networks of political institutions, defense industries, and technological research programs. Once these systems were in place, they began reinforcing themselves. Military contractors benefited from joint development programs, intelligence agencies relied on shared information, and political leaders on both sides built policies around the expectation that the alliance would continue. As a result, the relationship became highly resilient to political change. Presidents came and went, global conditions shifted, but the structural foundations of cooperation remained intact. Throughout the years, there have been attempts to redefine America's role in the Middle East or reduce its involvement in regional conflicts. Some policymakers have argued that the United States should focus more on domestic priorities or shift strategic attention toward Asia and emerging global powers. However, these efforts often encounter the same obstacle. The Middle East continues to play a critical role in global trade routes, energy markets, and international security. Instability in the region can quickly affect economies and political systems far beyond its borders. In that environment, having a reliable partner becomes extremely valuable. Israel's political stability and military capability have allowed it to maintain that role for decades. In modern times, the alliance also includes technological cooperation that extends far beyond traditional military support. Israel has become a global leader in cybersecurity, intelligence, technology, and advanced defense systems. Many of these innovations are developed in partnership with American research institutions and defense companies. Some technologies are even tested in real-world conditions before being integrated into broader security frameworks used by Western governments. These collaborations create a network of shared capabilities that strengthen both countries' defense systems while making the partnership even more difficult to separate. When viewed through this broader historical lens, the relationship between the United States and Israel appears less mysterious. While cultural and political factors certainly play a role, the core reason behind the alliance is strategic. Over time, the partnership has become part of a larger geopolitical structure built around intelligence, cooperation, military technology, and regional deterrence. These systems evolve slowly, but once they are established, they often persist for generations. There are three important lessons that emerge from this story. First, alliances between countries are often driven more by long-term strategic interests than by emotional or ideological connections. Governments tend to support partnerships that strengthen their position in an uncertain world. Second, institutional relationships, especially those involving defense and intelligence systems, can become extremely difficult to reverse once they are built. Entire networks of organizations, technologies, and policies begin depending on their continuation. Third, stability in an unstable region can become one of the most valuable strategic assets a country can offer. In global politics, reliability sometimes matters more than size or economic power. History also reveals a larger pattern. Many alliances begin in response to specific events or crises, but over time they evolve into complex systems that shape future decisions. As decades pass, the original reasons for the partnership may change or expand, yet the alliance itself continues because so many institutions depend on it. This raises an important question about how global power structures operate. If major geopolitical systems can persist for generations due to momentum and institutional inertia, then understanding them requires looking far beyond surface-level explanations. And that leads to a final thought. The forces shaping international alliances are often hidden beneath layers of history, strategy, and economic interests. By the time the public notices them, those systems may already be deeply embedded within the global order. Recognizing these patterns does not necessarily provide simple answers, but it does reveal how decisions made decades ago can still shape the world today.